here with Michael Lee Hill in Clearwater, Florida. This is really nice. We got a beautiful day. Looks like the storm is passing, and we're continuing our conversation, but actually now we're going to step back to the beginning of the story, which was seeing UFOs over Lake Erie. Mm-hmm. How did that start, and what happened?
Well, I'm a musician, and my band was practicing in my house, and we decided to take a smoke break. I don't smoke cigarettes, but
took a smoke break nonetheless.
Yes, took a smoke break nonetheless. And me and the bass player were in my backyard and happened to see a craft. I live very close to Lake Erie, about 10 houses away. And right on the shore was a huge craft, and it stayed for about 10 minutes.
So you could actually see the craft.
Excuse me. Oh yeah, we could see it
the
easy.
details, not just a light in the sky.
No, it was super close. Matter of fact, if you held your hand up to the horizon, it was about 2 inches.
Okay.
Which is big, you know.
Yeah. So what did it look like?
It looked like it was made of. It reminded me of a top hat. I know that sounds weird, but
okay.
It was all light, and then it had this thing on top of it that would have been like the top hat part, but it was more round. Okay. And it was moving very strange. It would be like, to the right and then back to
like jittery,
but then stable.
Okay.
And we watched it for about 10 minutes, and I didn't get that one on film, but
and that was the first sighting ever in your life?
Nah, well, yes, for a ship. I used to have encounters.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I'd ask my mom, how come Santa Claus's elves are coming to visit me? It's not Christmas. And it was always good. To me, like, these gray elves were bringing me presents. And
do you remember that currently? Oh, yeah. Like you have some of those memories?
Oh, yeah. My mom said all the time, I used to ask her, how come, these Santa Claus's elves are visiting me. But that subsided in my 20s, and now, it's strictly Anunnaki, no grays.
Okay. So those are completely different extraterrestrials.
From what
the grays. But you did have early childhood experiences with grays. And what kind of interaction? I mean, what do you remember from that?
My mom said she'd find me often, like I'd just be in the backyard standing there. And I remember almost being guided to come outside, and there would be like on an awning a gray, and it would be handing me down a box, like a gift, wrapped, everything like a Christmas gift. Okay. And it was never scary. It was like they were my friends.
Did you open the box?
You know what? It's where Richard Hoagland asked me that same thing. And I don't remember anything. He said it's probably a screen memory.
Okay.
Of as a kid.
Meaning that the memory was taken away, screened.
Screen or given to you. The memory of the gift.
So the whole thing happening.
Yeah, it was like gifts were given, but it was symbolized by a box gift with a bow.
So for as long as you can remember, basically, you've had interactions with extra dimensionals.
Yes. But
this was the first time where you saw a ship, and you had your band with you to verify and like kind of validate the experience you were having. You weren't alone in this experience.
Yeah, dude, you seeing that? It was pretty much that. But that what would you call that? Encouraged me to, first of all, I had a Sony Handycam.
Okay.
And hadn't used it for shit. Matter of fact, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but it took me about a year to figure out there was a filming at nighttime mode.
Oh, okay.
And I learned from David Cerrito as well. He was showing a lot of things in
we have our friends out by the fire by the water, and they're having a great time. Oh, they got a fire going. All right.
Oh boy. Where were we? I got That's the sign for East Lake.
I just said, and they laughed, and they know we can't contain an E.
So you saw that was encouragement for you to start
figuring out how to
filming,
use my
and you had
camera.
your handy
David
cam.
Sarita showed me they're capturing a lot of things in infrared
Okay.
and super night shot that it's not visible in the human spectrum of seeing. So this handy cam, first of all, one of the best things I figured out was turn off the autofocus.
Okay.
Because once it flies through, it's really hard to keep it in frame. If it goes out of focus, to get it back in focus, to get it back in frame, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to snap it into autofocus, get it focused on the craft.
And then kick it off.
Yeah, then I could track things very much better. That's some good English. Much better. So what I did was start finding any little nook and cranny. And
any little nook or
along the lake, like a
so now
beach.
In your quest to discover more, which you're now enthusiastic about,
I
you've
wanted
got
to
your
film
camera.
them. I'm like, you know what?
You wanted to catch it.
I'm gonna go down with my Sony Handycam around sunset, and I had a tripod and I had it set up, and if a big ball of light went by, I was ready to film it.
Would you be able to put a time frame on when that first big ship experience was?
Around 2005.
About 2005.
2006.
Okay, so you were, from 2005 on, you were on a mission to capture more.
Yeah. And you know what was weird is at first, I didn't know what it was. Because it's not your typical ship made of nuts and bolts and metal and, a big saucer. They look like a giant ball of fire is what it looked like. I thought maybe is it some kind of weird atmosphere thing, But like I said, some of my footage went viral, and that ended up having the History Channel knock on my door.
Some of this Sony Handycam night shot footage that you took along the shore at Lake Erie, you were posting that to YouTube?
Yes. But you know what? That's a very good point. The Sony Handycam, it recorded on digital 8 cassettes, and in the highest resolution, you got 1 hour per cassette.
Right.
So I brought 2 cassettes down with me, and I had filled both of those that night with just unbelievable stuff happening. So I'm sitting there, I had my camera packed away, because first of all, I didn't like filming it. You imagine that little Sony Handycam, it's got a little black and white viewfinder.
Right.
Here you are with the most beautiful, vibrant, multi-dimensional colored object right out in front of you, and you're looking at it through a black and white viewfinder.
It just takes you out of the experience because you're looking at the screen instead of...
Yeah, I wanted the real thing hitting my retina.
Yeah.
But I knew it was important to catalog it. Mm-hmm. But, in this case, I got to the point where I'd be like, if you don't do anything different than you've done before, come closer, do something, then I'm just going to sit here and enjoy it and be able to see it, and I'm not getting out my camera. Well, sure enough, they'd come closer and closer. But this time, it was really weird because I had a lot of footage. Excuse me. So I said, listen, do something. Show up. Make it where it's not debatable. Show up within the next 5 minutes. And if you show up just unbelievably, then I won't release it. That'll be the sign to me. So I sat there in silence, and 5 minutes had passed. Mind you, the activity was off the charts that night. So even to have 5 minutes of not even a little spark out there was kind of odd. So I let it go to about 10 minutes. I said, all right, cool. They must not care, let's celebrate. And all of a sudden, 2 huge orbs showed up that were had a million rows of little lights going back and forth between them, and it was teeter-tottering in the sky, and it probably took up maybe 2 football fields. It was very, very big, And as I'm watching it, smaller orbs of light start dropping down and taking turns. And so that was my confirmation that they were okay with me releasing this. So I did. I put it on YouTube, and next thing I knew, it went viral, and that's what drew the History Channel to my door. But as I said, through all this, I didn't know what it was. All I knew was like there was huge orbs of light flying around the lake, and they would sometimes they would just appear out of nowhere, which I've now filmed that behavior. But then one would show up and another one would show up. And then sometimes they'd fly around each other and another one, and they'd lock into like a triangle formation. The History Channel is at my house, and the producer brings over a laptop.
They called you like on the phone and said, hey, we want to...
Actually, it came through YouTube.
Okay, so they reached out.
Yeah, their host, Pat Uskert, contacted me and said, hey, we're doing a show. We seen, your footage. And originally they said, we're doing a show on Skywatchers. Okay. And would you like to, show your Lake Erie UFO footage? And it was going to be like 5 minutes.
Okay.
And what happened is they came and they had interviewed another guy. His name was Terrell Copeland. And Terrell had filmed the exact same thing, these orbs of light I had. Same kind of contact and same spiritual message given to him of kind of like that thoughts create reality, bed of info, law of attraction. They thought, what they found out though was he was a Marine and he was being shipped off elsewhere. And they did a very thorough...
Now, is this the guy that was on the... No, not the guy on the Canadian side of Lake Erie in this case.
No.
Okay.
No,
he was comes later.
He was in Washington.
Okay. So
actually, there is no. The phenomenon's all over the Great Lakes, period. But I think you might be the Peacemaker came from the Canada side.
Okay.
There wasn't a whole other story.
Okay. Yes. Another topic.
But what I will tell you is, with the History Channel at my house, he brought me a laptop. He said, we want to get your opinion on this. And they showed me some footage from the UK. And it was exactly the same thing that was over the lake. It's the first time that I had seen other footage. And so I even said to him, I started, wait, what? Well, how is this the same thing? And he laughed. He goes, yeah, that's why we're showing it to you. So that was the first time that I became aware that this was showing up anywhere else. And
so they showed you that the first time they met with you to get some footage with you and have some of your footage in this program. Did that program end up airing?
Yes.
Okay.
But it turned into it being a whole hour-long show on me and Terrell, because they thought, wouldn't it be weird if these two people that have never met before ended up having this same unknown blood anomaly? Because that's what happened with Terrell, is being in the military. They were going to send him elsewhere, and his blood work showed up this blood anomaly that was the best military doctors in the world couldn't figure out what it was. So
that was coming to light at that time around the show, and the show was aware that that's why he wasn't going to be sent on assignment. It was because of his blood work?
Yes.
So now they're like, he's got a blood anomaly and the same experiences.
Yeah.
And so they came to you and asked to get a blood test from you.
No, they didn't, because they're smart. I would have said no. I'm the biggest baby when it comes to needles. They said, would you be willing to come to Boston to do an update? I had no idea why I was being flown to Boston. I was just like, well, all right, Here they flew Terrell and myself and had our blood work done by a Harvard professor.
Okay.
For it's Season 1, UFO Hunters, episode Alien Contact. So instead of having a 5-minute segment, it ended up being a whole hour-long show on mine and Terrell's similarities in our story and footage and contact.
And what was it about your blood that came back as unusual?
It is everyone has an enzyme called creatine kinase,
Okay.
and CK for short. And the normal amounts of CK in people's bloodstreams is about 25 parts per liter of blood. But if you've had a muscle rip or tear or a heart attack, it can jump up to about 250 to about 300 tops.
Parts per million.
Parts per liter of blood.
Per liter. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what they found was, first of all, your brain releases more creatine kinase into the bloodstream to facilitate healing. If you rip the muscle, the extra CK brings extra oxygen to that damaged part.
Okay.
And it's the CK that facilitates the oxygen, which brings extra prana or chi, life force, whatever you want to call it, electricity at a cellular level. What they found in mine and Terrell's, and they said we almost had identical levels, whereas if the normal amount was 25 parts per liter of blood, we were at 2,100.
Wow.
And so you could look at that as having super oxygenated blood, which we can get into. I found out why exactly that is. But if, we started to listen to that A.R. Borden interview, and he said these indicators in your blood that aren't normal is what allowed you to make contact with these beings. And there's not too many people that can tune in at will. And those that can are noticed, and so you were,
So this is very much a story of one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
Because what you were shooting out over Lake Erie led to the History Channel doing that part of a series with you, which also connected you to an awareness about this bloodlines and this.
Yeah, but yes and no, because at that time I had no clue. I can tell you the last day of the shoot for the History Channel, they revealed that the professor came in, you don't have normal human blood. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. First of all,
bad.
Yeah, wait, this isn't a TV show anymore to me. What are you talking about?
This is my life.
Yeah, is there something I need to be worried about here? And he goes, what do you think unknown means? He's pretty much a dick about it. I was like, sorry, He said, well, talk to your own doctor. We don't know what to tell you. Really, he said, what do you think unknown means? And he said, if I had to place a guess, I would guess that there's some type of virus. He said, because not all viruses are bad. They're one of the only things that can operate at the level of DNA, he said. That some type of unknown virus was tricking my brain into releasing massive amounts of creatine kinase without having any medical reason for. Even with a medical reason, it should be only about 300 tops.
Wow.
But as we'll get
almost
into,
10 times that.
Yeah. And when I was brought into A.R. Borden's group, he said that for the ACIO, which we'll get into that, it's a segment of the NSA, the Alien Contact Interface Organization.
Is that the next part of the story? Was there another piece after the History Channel and becoming aware?
Well, I can tell you just because of the blood thing, they said that they had 12 members of their organization, the Remote Viewers / Reverse Engineering Division, that had our same bloodline, if you want to look at it that way, because I didn't know what it was. And our levels of 2100 would have put us in about the middle of those 12 individuals.
So what led to your connecting with that A.R. Borden's group?
Well, actually, let me roll back to the UFOs.
Yes, please.
Because that's a whole other story in itself. But with the contact with whatever these orbs of light were, I ended up getting contact by Bigelow Aerospace. This was in 2011.
Okay.
And Bigelow Aerospace is who the Pentagon, you'll find, how it's been revealed now, the Pentagon had a secret UFO program.
Yes.
They funded Bigelow Aerospace $22 million to look into new energy systems.
Okay.
Isn't it weird though? They're looking for new energy systems, and they were just got to me a little too early, because that's what we're talking about with NASA and seeing a brand new way of bringing energy from another dimension here.
I just realized, are you getting bit? Because I think we got, what is this screen on?
Oh, I'm sure. So with the UFOs, I learned from the Bigelow Aerospace. See, what happened was when they got funded, Robert Bigelow, who owned Bigelow Aerospace, created what's called Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, or BASS. And really, people know that they were funded to find new propulsion systems and new energy systems, but the biggest thing is they wanted to find people that were in contact with this intelligence, which no one really knows that yet.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they want to know who's getting the curriculum. So they contacted me and said, listen, we know that what you're in contact with is the real deal because we've been studying it.
What does it look like when you get contacted? Was it an email? Did they call?
It was email, and it was weird because me and another of the witnesses for the Lake Erie UFOs, his name was Eugene Ehrlich, we both did a radio show because we both filmed the exact same craft. You know, he filmed it from 2 miles that way, I filmed it 2 miles this way, and we both filmed the exact same object. That really had sparked the Bigelow investigator. His name was Gary Hernandez. And so during the interview, he actually spoke to the reporter of that.
Okay,
and
so like he called in kind of a thing? Or?
Yeah, and then he contacted me, and that
so
was...
you're doing a radio show?
Yeah. And,
with the gentleman that also had similar footage. They're the same craft from a different angle.
Yes. Pretty much he said, because the radio host had brought up that MUFON came on the scene, which is weird. MUFON at the time was funded by Bigelow Aerospace.
Okay.
So here you got MUFON coming going, oh, it's just airplanes. I'm thinking, well, that's a weird airplane that comes out of the lake and ignites into a ball of fire and flies away, and then another one next to it goes down into the lake. That's not an airplane. You know what I mean? Unless you know something I don't. But then they tried to say there were the radio towers across 56 miles across the lake in Canada, and certain atmospheric conditions, you know, these radio towers, you would see the lights here. I'm like, that's such bullshit. But simultaneously, you have the real deal, which is Bigelow Aerospace contacting Lake Erie UFO contactees because they know it's the real deal. That shows you the kind of trickery, you know. Us Native American Indians call it heyoka. Over here, it's like side speak. Hey, look over here. You know? But what I learned from Gary Hernandez, he said this phenomenon is showing up all over the Great Lakes. Niagara Falls is a real hot spot. The Canada is a hot spot. But one interesting thing is he said these have more to do, these balls of fire have more to do with portals and time travel than they do normal craft, which is interesting because now people know the History Channel has come out with the Skinwalker Ranch. Well, Robert Bigelow bought the Skinwalker Ranch and staffed it with the best money could buy, you know, equipment, scientists, and whatnot. So they contacted me. We know you're in contact. And pretty much, you know, a lot of it too, we're like, how come we're having no luck with communication? And I'm like, well, quit trying to hunt it down, you know what I mean? You try the olive branch instead of the arrow, and you might have better luck than what you've been having. But Gary Hernandez also told me the UK Ministry of Defense had just declassified a whole bucket of classified documents. They said the real deal was these orbs of light. And in the UK, they said that They didn't understand it, but 3 of these orbs of light could come together and create one huge triangular craft that accounted for these massive triangular ships that are being seen all over the planet right now. And so 3 of these orbs of light could come create one craft that couldn't see stars when it passed by and whatnot. But at the Skinwalker Ranch, the orbs of light would come down. First of all, they were called Skinwalkers because the Native American Indian First Nations that lived there would see these orbs of light come down and take on biological life forms. Like the scientists that lived at Skinwalker Ranch, seeing them become giant wolves, giant deer. So it hit me right here. This isn't my opinion, but this is Bigelow Aerospace in the UK Ministry of Defense saying whatever this intelligence is can pretty much become anything in our reality, from technological to biological, from a giant triangular craft to a giant wolf. Well, this is something brand new then to try to wrap your head around. And I found out as well, they call it poltergeist activity, that these scientists are living at the Skinwalker Ranch. So they had to go to the grocery store and get groceries, and they'd come back and put all the groceries into the cabinets and then go into the next room. One guy, hey, you know what? I forgot I'm gonna go get a Pepsi. Walk back in and all the groceries were back in the grocery bags.
And what's the location of the Skinwalker Ranch?
Utah.
It's in Utah.
Yeah. But what people don't realize, you could just as easily, if you want to experience the phenomenon of the Skinwalker Ranch, which now a lot of people are like, oh, how do you get onto the ranch? Well, you'll get shot. Yeah, I don't recommend trying to get onto the Skinwalker Ranch.
Have you been?
No.
No.
But I don't have to.
Yeah.
They even said just go to Lake Erie. Find, around the Cleveland area specifically. But when I met, we'll go a little bit into after the History Channel, is when I was met at a festival, and these beings.
No, is this before or after Bigelow Aerospace connection?
Before.
Okay, so this is before. So after the History Channel, you've got some more understanding that something's different about you with your blood.
A little bit, not much. It was still unfolding, very new to me at that time.
So the next major event after this discovery with the History Channel was a festival that you went to.
Yeah, the show aired in March of 2008. Summer, like June of 2008, I was invited to go to this festival called Sirius Rising.
Okay.
And there's where I was met by these beings who showed me they weren't from here because they could become faceless. I know that sounds weird, but it is what it is.
So you go to this festival and you had no idea what you were getting into.
Nah, I thought I was going camping.
And you met these beings for the first time in kind of a secluded kind of a situation, there was a group of people, and one of the people of this group owned land at this campsite where you could put a permanent deck. Okay.
Well, they had what was called the I Dream a Genie bottle, because it was a gazebo, but it was, when you got inside of it, it kind of looked like you're in that I Dream a Genie bottle from the 1960s show.
All right.
It had all this fabric going all the way around a gazebo, but you can imagine there's only one way in.
Right.
And so once you got in, the fabric went down. It's kind of hard to find your way back out. And so that's where this went down. But
okay, so you're in a genie bottle, basically,
yeah.
at the festival, in a little something they had, and you walked in.
Yeah, they said, we heard you've been filming us over Lake Erie, and we want to talk to you about the blood anomaly that was revealed on the History Channel, because it's an indicator that you're of our hybrid bloodline known as the Nephilim in the Bible, is what he told me at that point.
And did he have a face when he was telling you that?
No. The whole first meeting, the first thing that happened is when I got back to the campground that had the I Dream a Genie bottle, this one person, I know this sounds ridiculous, but he said his magical name was Loki. And of course, this was before Thor and anything. I didn't know what a Loki even was, but he said his name was Loki.
Let me hit this real quick.
So he said, I'm going back to the campground, see if everything's just locked down and everything's cool. You know, I said, well, I'll go with you. Well, when we got there, there was no one there. He said, there's some people that have been waiting to talk to you, waiting for you in the genie bottle. So I was like, what the heck, you know? So that's when I entered the genie bottle for the first time. And the first thing I noticed was no faces. I was like, can I see your faces? And he said, no, you'll have to wait till tomorrow to see our true faces. I thought that was a weird response anyhow, because he didn't say, what are you talking about? He knew I couldn't see their faces. And so that began the first.
So just to kind of have a picture, because it's so interesting, was it dark? Did that play a role? Was there kind of like some obscurity to it?
It was a round gazebo type structure.
Yeah.
That had a round bed / couch.
Okay.
And that couch, the round part, left, I don't know, that 5 feet maybe, like there, from the end of the bed to the outer circle of the gazebo. And there was a male and a female. And the whole inside of the gazebo genie bottle was lit by candles.
Okay.
They had and it had a chandelier hanging in the middle of it. And so what it looked like was almost like there was kind of like a mist or a smoke coming from an invisible fire or shadow. And however they moved, it seemed like it tracked their face, which it just didn't look right, you know? And so that's the first thing I asked, you know, can I see your faces? Because I can't see your faces.
Yeah.
And he said, you'll have to wait till tomorrow. And so that preceded that first encounter. We can get into it in detail, but I will tell you, an hour or so left after I left that meeting, he was right behind me, and I decided to sneak a peek. And he was, I guess you call it a coat of many colors. It was a robe that was emitting light, and he truly wasn't physical. He looked like he was made out of a plasma type fire, really fine mist, but looked almost, I know if I say gargoyle-ish, people are gonna go, oh, reptilian, but it wasn't scary. It was very regal, very translucent, like he wasn't in physical form, and very gargoyle-ish, very high pronounced facial, like eyebrow rims and whatever. And so yeah, he was right behind me.
Was that the next day that you
No,
saw?
this is the same day that they were faceless.
Okay.
But when we left
later.
the structure, it was pretty well lit out there with outdoor lights and whatever. And obviously it could be I was just in a darker environment for an hour. But when I walked out, he surely didn't look physical, and he surely looked like he was wearing a robe of light. But when I met my biological mother, I do just want to say this. We can get into who I found out my biological father is, but she said he took her to these festivals up in the hills, of big carnival tents, and people were in robes. And she said, you know what though, it was really strange. When I was walking up, he was standing there, and I don't know if it was just how the light was hitting him, but he looked like his robe was made of light. And I thought, oh, you know what, that's very interesting, because it's exactly what I seen with who I found out was Marduk. But
so we will come back to that in a future conversation. But you were saying that, and you understood that they were Anunnaki that you were meeting with in this genie bottle?
Yeah, well, they told me before the Loki said, we were once known in your past as the Anunnaki, and you were once known as Ea Enki, the water bearer.
Wow.
And that time again, the water bearer, what the hell's that? Now because of NASA testing my stuff though, I could look someone in the eye and go, you know what, I am the water bearer. Would you like to see the GTV photographs? You know what I mean?
So they were telling you they were going to give you some information, and they did, about the blood anomalies, and that being because of
that ended up being more from A.R. Borden. I learned a shit ton of what the blood and what it is, but also I ended up learning from my brother from another mother, Dan Reed. I probably learned more about the bloodline from him than anybody. It's almost like the more technical aspects I learned from A.R. Borden. He said, yeah, it actually is an Anunnaki virus that is tricking the blood. Truly, they found, we can get into the reason why, but the Nephilim came to help mankind, steer mankind into the light. And in the Bible, it said the Nephilim were the men of renown, right? They did great things. They went through great lengths to help mankind.
There's definitely some conflicting views around that as far as the Bible goes.
Oh yeah, they
and the Nephilim and the flood.
It's been thrown into fear, hasn't it? They're good at that.
It has.
You know, what I like to say is, you can look this up. The Pope just came out recently and said, you know what, we made a huge mistake. Mary Magdalene was the apostle of apostles, understood Jesus' teachings more so than anyone. And now they have a Saint Mary Magdalene Day officially.
Which is a very good point, that a lot of what we have accepted as being one
Truth.
way or the other, angels and demons and
well, they made her into a
those
prostitute
stories.
and a whore, didn't they?
Maybe,
you know, the Vatican.
Not only an oversimplification, but inaccurate. Some of the views that we have had.
I think a lot of these things we're going to learn, they turned a lot of truly who were the team good cop into team bad cop. Because, you know, if there's a reason for all of it, but getting back to the blood anomaly, the Anunnaki who wanted to come and help, tried to incarnate into the human vessel, and the human vessel was not capable of handling their higher energetics, and they would spontaneously combust.
And they were telling you this?
Yes.
Okay.
So he said we had to create it. Well, first of all, that stopped that plan. You know, who wants to come and burst into flames? It's not a good plan.
Okay.
So I said, well, what if we created an offshoot of the human genome that did have more prana or chi available at a cellular memory, hence the creatine kinase. So they would have a soul carrier that could hold that higher energetics. I run real hot.
Yeah.
But so that's it. You know, at a further clip into this, we'll get into, well, why was the Nephilim created and why were they sent to try to guide, you know, behind the scenes. But
that's a really important story because it has so much to do with our human history.
yes.
And most importantly, the shifting point that we're at, and probably get into that. Look at 2016 and beyond, possibly next.
Perfect.
Yeah. Just in conclusion, so that kind of gives us the base of what got you into an awareness of your origins, your connections.
Yeah. It all, you know, I like to say I kind of feel like the Forrest Gump of all this. You know, one thing happens and then it leads to other things happening. And, you know, it was at first just filming the UFOs, then the History Channel, then the blood work being done, then being met by the Anunnaki saying, we want to tell you about what this blood anomaly is. And then that would be a perfect thing. Why don't we take a break, and the next time we can start with the first meeting in the genie bottle and what happened and what was discussed.
That sounds very good. It has been a pleasure. Michael Lee Hill. All right.